Hey, we're here. Hello, everyone.
Hey everybody,
I'm Haley,
I'm Aria.
and welcome to Indie Brand Sizing Challenges for Small Designers and Businesses, which could describe my life.
Exactly, mine too.
Oh my god, yeah. We when we talked over this panel, we just shot the shit about it for about an hour, just about how there's so many things that we could talk about on this topic. So very excited today. I hope you enjoyed that last panel. We're essentially just going from one industry to another. So welcome to fashion industry problems.
Yes, indeed.
All right, let's just get on it. I'm Haley. I'm the designer of the Black Ribbon.
Yes, and I'm Aria, one of the designers of Lilith at Adalia.
And what are sizes and why do they matter?
Yes.
So we wanted to mostly start out with sizes are an arbitrary made-up number. They don't really have a meaning necessarily because they're completely arbitrary. So they're imaginary. That's the most important thing I can convey to you today is sizes don't exist.
Yeah, like basically like a bunch of people decided at one point that they took a pool of a very small group of mostly white women at some point way back when, I don't know, like maybe starting around like the 20s, 30s, I started like collecting data on average woman sizing specifically, and of course there was like men sizing as well, which is a whole other animal. But and yeah, they decided like these are the sizes and this is what we're doing, and it's like, well, this doesn't fit like barely anybody. Okay, I guess this is
Right.
what
So the main history to sizing is that prior to a certain point in time, most clothes were made at home or by a tailor for individuals. They weren't mass produced. So this finally comes back to the Industrial Revolution. So once they started mass producing garments, they had to come up with a way to kind of standardize things. And as Ari said, they kind of just they put out a survey, and I think they paid for it. So people who were poor, who didn't have a lot of money, were like, oh shit, I would happily come over here and get measured. And yeah, so it's based off of like that was the original sizing. That's where we get originally like the US and UK sizing from, but that's not, reflective of everybody. It is very arbitrary, like I said, and they're just make-believe numbers. Very, yes. Very, very make-believe. You can, sizing changes completely between brands, even within a brand, between like lines. Like, I remember J. Crew had a bridal line, and that size, even though they were still numerical numbers, like 0, 2, 3, whatever. They're even numbers, 0, 2, 4, 6, etc. They were not the same sizes as their regular women's lines. So again, just as an example, they are arbitrary numbers and they are make-believe. Mm-hmm. So don't stress out if you don't fit a size ever. Exactly. Don't stress about it.
Exactly. And I just saw in the comments, Evergreen Frog suggested on historical costuming YouTube, Nicole Rudolph. That's actually a video I watched too very recently. That video is super great. I don't know if somebody can link it. Like, it's super, super informative about the history of sizing in the US and also I think a little bit in the UK. Like that really hit the nail on the head with a lot of stuff. So
right. So yeah. So if you don't fit into any brand size, don't stress out. We just want to make sure that if you take away nothing else from this panel today, understand that sizes are fully make-believe and they are not made for everybody. And if they aren't made for you, don't be surprised. Okay. So we're going to get into, as a brand, what it's like to deal with sizing. Mm-hmm. So how do you determine your sample size? Here's a couple of different ways to do it. I sometimes do consulting for startup businesses that are fashion businesses. And one of the most common problems I have is people, when they want to start designing a line, is they want to design for themselves, which is always don't do that. Just number one, no, you are not the customer. The customer may share a lot of things with you, and you need to figure out what those things are, but you are not the customer and just making sure you separate yourself from that on many different levels, including like taste, all those things, but especially including sizing. I have a lot of people because it was expensive to hire a fit model. I understand that. So they tend to design for their own body and then pattern around that because they are an easily accessible model. I get it. That is not a good way, though, if you're trying to start a brand to go about this business.
Right, exactly. And I definitely can touch a little bit on that for when I first started sewing. Of course, I had myself. I was mostly making clothing for myself. But when I decided, okay, I want to start a brand and I need to cater to a broader range, because for me myself, I'm pretty petite and small. So I know I don't basically I mostly would fit into what would be considered the standard Japanese sizing. But when it comes to more Western sizing, I'm actually on the smaller side. So I need to think about because I'm the main pattern maker for our brand. I have to think about all people who go way beyond my sizing if I want to even scratch the surface on who can fit and to accommodate customers.
Right. So here's 3 different strategies to help you if you're starting a brand determine your sizing. Number 1 is polling or surveying your customers. I aggressively poll and survey my customers kind of once a year in January. I skipped this year because I've been very busy, and I probably will do it eventually at some point. Just to check in and see who your customers are. Can't really do that if you're just starting out, though. So my other 2 strategies may be better for people who are just starting out. Using a sample from a brand that shares your customer base. So if your target market is like the Japanese Lolita market, using AP or Baby the Stone Show and Bright and using their measurements as a base to work from is a great idea. I know that that's not who my market is, though, because who wants to pay reverse shipping from Japan when they have all those options? I mostly sell to America, so that's really important for me to focus on those customers. Mm-hmm. So here's a crazy tip that I usually tell brands that are starting out is to go and go grab a couple sample sizes from brands that reflect their customer. Maybe for us that might be maybe ModCloth, for example, some brands from ModCloth or other brands that are similar to that, that will also shop at if they're Westerners, secondary brands, and measure all of those, and that could be your sizing.
Mm-hmm.
As a good sneaky way to steal another brand's deeply researched. If you have, if your customer shops at a big company, something like J. Crew or the Gap or whatever, if your customer also has overlap with that, they have put in a lot of dollars and a lot of research into their size chart, so you can take advantage of that and just go through and get a size 4 dress and measure it. And that's my pro tip to you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great tip because that, and I originally come from the fashion industry. Now I'm working in a different industry now. I'm more in tech. But before, in all my companies, we'll just take samples from other places and just measure them, check them against what we were doing, show them to our tech people. And then when I was doing technical design, writing specs, and doing more of that later into my fashion career, that's what I did. Salesperson will bring a sample to me from our places that our customer shop at, Burlington, TJ Maxx, whatever the case may be. I was in children's wear, so I would look at those clothing and be like, okay, this is what we're trying to match. This is what the buyer wants to match, this sizing range. So I had to take all those things in mind in order to create my specs and make them accurate and make sure they fit the customer base we were trying to target. So,
yep. I'm just going to read this question out real quick from Pastel Pastry Chef. Let's see. My biggest issue with sizing is finding clothes where the arms go up in sizing with the upper bust. Stick arms. Are we talking about the length of arms or the arm side? What part of the sleeve is problem? Not sure if I understand that right this second, but you can fill me in. Is it the arm side, the armhole, or is it the sleeve, or is it the cuff of the sleeve, or is it the length? There's a lot of pieces in that. But grading is actually really complicated, and we're going to get into that next. But this is just talking about specifically sample size. So yeah, this is just how you figure out like your basic, because you know when you make a garment, you make a sample and then you size up and down from that sample. You want to sample, and if you like go up a lot of sizes, for example, I start my sample kind of like more at a US 4 or a 6, and then I go up 2 or 3 sizes. And then if I'm going to start doing like a much larger size, like maybe starting at like an extra large, which I guess is like, I'm really bad at number sizes, guys. I'm like the worst. So essentially I do like a medium, and once I get to an extra large, I create a whole new sample based on a different body shape, because at that point the body shape changes so much you can't really grade further up from there. Like that's really important. We're going to get to grading, but like we're just strictly talking about samples right this second. So we're not getting into the grading yet, but yeah. So the circumference of the upper arm, like up in here, and that does kind of have to do with arm size. Like I feel like the armhole is too small, and then yeah, grading is really hard. There's really different rules for like necklines and armholes and then sleeves. It's really a challenge because like if you're just getting something bigger, if you make the measurements bigger in places, you're actually just making it longer and you're not gonna scoop it out more. It's complicated. We'll get there. We're gonna get there. Yes. Okay. So that's information about how to determine a sample size, some suggestions if you're trying to start a brand, why it's a challenge. Anything else you think I've left out, Aria?
No, I think that's pretty much everything for this. Like I'm just thinking more so like more technically, I think they'll get more into like the grading thing, which we'll get to.
Yeah, okay. I think that's next. Grade rules. Grade rules is very, very important. So grading, what is grading? Grading is the size, like the difference between your sizes, essentially. And you can use those same processes, like I said, taking, going to J.Crew and getting like a dress in, a 4, a 6, an 8, a 10, and seeing what the difference is between those sizes. That's one way to do it. As Lolitas, we don't really do that kind of sizing. We kind of usually like have maybe a size 1, just kind of like a small medium-ish, and then like a size 2, which might be a little bigger. Our sizes don't work that way, so it's a little hard for us to determine those grade rules, and you might experiment. And again, surveying your customer once you get started. I definitely have done that, and I found that I actually have like a weird gap in my sizing in terms of who my customer is. My size 1 is definitely like a giant chunk of my customers. Size 2 doesn't really fit that many of my customers, weirdly. I'm a size 2, but not that many people are. And then my size 3 is incredibly popular as well. And then I have people who are outside of that sizing, unfortunately, and I would like to reach them eventually, but there are not many of them yet. And that's part of my problem with like, I can't afford to offer things to them yet because there's not that many of them yet.
Yeah, like definitely a similar experience on our end. Like when because currently I'm actually trying to determine grade rules for our brand, and the challenge I'm having too is seeing like, and we haven't done any surveys yet because I feel like we're still in figuring it out. We're still trying to figure out like how we're trying to move forward and scale our production in some ways. So we're like right at that beginning stage. So since I have a background in technical design, I've been writing a bunch of these spec sheets. I measured everything that we made in our previous collection, and we did plus size garments that we did, but that skipped a lot of people's sizing, and a lot of people were DMing us saying like, yeah, I love that you're making this size, but it's too big for me. And I'm like, okay, so there is a gap, and I need to figure out what that gap is. And it's sort of like, and I think I'm literally just thinking of this now, but we're probably going to go around the realm of doing like size 1, size 2, size 3, size 4, and like that, because what is our current size is based sort of on like the main like standard size. I don't even want to call it standard because it's just a starting point. It's just like literally the starting point. That sloper I had was a base size like 6'8", but it was based off of a mannequin that was from 1987. So there is some weird things that would happen based on like where you're taking like this information from. So, and it was a sloper I had from when I was still studying fashion, and that was the form I had. It was a 1987 size 8. So that was my block. Then I also have another block that is like a size 18 curvy, which is what I base the plus size standard on. So it's 2 different standards I'm working with, and trying to find a middle ground for the people that are like in between those 2 like blocks is very challenging, because I'm realizing having a large size and an extra large is like an overlap because they're shearing, and like it just changes everything. So it's not as simple as like, you know, it's just not.
I like the calls like, what's your size in 1989, size 10. To be honest, like my favorite thing is looking at vintage mannequins. Like it's like from the brand Wolf, they do a lot of research themselves about the sizing. And here's another way to like standardize your sizing a little bit, is to look at mannequins online, and they have their measurements posted a lot of times. They may not have like everything you really need, but it's a good starting place. Are there different grade rules depending on what country it is? Absolutely. Even companies that ship internationally, they have different, like besides just different standard sizing, they'll have different grade rules and like a different sloper, which is your base pattern. They'll have all of that completely different based on the body type of like the market that they're trying to, like they have the Asian market has a very different body type, obviously, than like the American market versus the European market. Like one of my favorite things is I go to Zara, who I don't think they have like multiple slopers because they're really fast production. I can't ever fit in their pants because my calves are too big because they got little toothpick legs. I don't know what's up with that. Like even if I could close the waist, my fat calves, I've got some monstrous man calves. I'm very proud of them. I don't skip leg day. I can't get my foot through the pant leg. It's like one of my favorites. So absolutely, people who are bigger brands have different grade rules and different slopers, base patterns, everything, totally different sizing depending on what market you're in. I got totally distracted about the mannequins. Oh yes, the mannequins. So Wolf is a really great brand and company that has produced dress forms for like almost like 100 years probably at this point. Probably maybe more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, all the dress forms I've used in school, they were all Wolf forms. Like Wolf is just like the standard.
It's like the gold standard, especially in America. It's one of the best. But I've seen older forms from Wolf, and here's the thing: like a lot of those, because standard sizing changes throughout the years. They are based on the ideal of that time period. So if you get one from like the 60s, they have this really snatched waist because a lot of people wore girdles, and like their boobs are more pointy because they had those like bullet bras. Like they have all these weird shapes like hard built into them because of their undergarments that they were using at the time. So it's really key if you're trying to hit the modern market to make sure you're using a fairly modern dress form, because a lot of people get vintage dress forms just because they're cheap on the internet. They're really great for display, because you can always just like suck it in or whatever and pin it to make it look good on the display form. It's fine, but they are not great to work with if you're not going for that shape. So that's like a weird but true fact. I definitely have seen them where they just like boop boop, and I'm like, how is the waist happening? It's not normal.
No.
So I think it's really funny. I'm sure like you have, like you said, like an 80s one. I'm sure it has like that real hard bod that was like really in. Like, no hip, no ass.
Her shoulders were like super high. I don't have her anymore. I actually gave her away because she was a little bit falling apart, and ended up getting a new one from PGM, which is also a pretty good brand.
Not bad. It's like an entry level.
Even though my stand broke, which is another issue. Like I don't know what happened to the stand. It won't go up and down. She's like,
that's very common.
Corner, and
very
I'm like,
common issue.
Yeah, and I'm like, really? I need to use her. But anyway, like I have a PGM now. She's a size 8. And to get like other sizes, I have to sort of pad her to like, you put a little padding here, and maybe you can talk a little about that. Like you can pad up dress forms to sort of get it to the size that you want it to be. It's not foolproof way, but
I love you do what you have to do. Shoulders for the shoulder pads though.
Yeah.
That's just such like, you know, you can see that body type like in your head. It's just like so iconic. It's so funny that like they really do reflect like the fashion standards of the time. So definitely get a more modern dress form as you go into this.
Yes.
Alrighty. Is there anything else that I should have talked about with grading? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think the next slide is probably more like
here's an example of some grade rules, and this is a spec sheet. So I'll let Ari talk about this because this is hers.
Yes. So this is one of our spec sheets. I literally just started doing this with our last collection. So I took sort of what we had, and I have like the 2 highlighted rows in the middle are like the standard size for that section. So I started SML. This is, I don't know if that's what it's going to be in the end. This is literally experimental stage right now. So the small size is sort of like smaller than the standard size. So it grades downward. So there's like a row, the gray rows in the sheet are basically a formula that does the math. So like, see, for instance, say like the high point shoulder, like the front length from the shoulder to like the waist, and it grades a 1/2 inch because that specific section of the body, that's what that section grades, and every single measurement point grades differently. And that can change even depending on like the size that you're grading. I'm still trying to figure out, does it work out the same for plus sizes? Maybe not in some cases. Like, it's very tricky. And then also when it comes to things that have shearing, like even shearing in the back, if that's full shearing, half shearing, if there's like a sleeve, it has like shearing in the sleeve, like how much does that stretch? Like, is it twice the measurement? Is it 1.5 the measurement? Is how much like give do you need to give it, which is like the extended measurement. So I have a row in the spec sheet for the relaxed measurement, which is how it measures when it's not stretched, and then the full measurement when it's stretched out fully. And even then I try not to like fully stretch it out. It's like how far I can get it to go comfortably, because like then you run into the issue where it's like maxed out as in it's fully stretched out and maybe it's not really comfortable to wear anymore. I try to avoid that. I try to just be a little bit more generous and say like, okay, this is the maximum. Maybe it can go a little more, but I don't want to push it to the point where it might be uncomfortable for the person wearing it. So like you, like for instance, with a sleeve, like in a bicep, you don't want that to be the maximum shearing amount, like maxed out is the measurement that you're trying to get to, because it'll just be like a tight band and it won't have any gathering in it anymore.
No one wants that.
No one wants that. So like you have to take all these things into account, and like it is very challenging. And then there's people with longer arms. Like for me, I have pretty long arms. Most brand blouses are too short on my arms because I just have long arms. And so it looks really awkward. It's like, okay. And so considering those things, I try to make the sleeves run a little bit longer. Maybe that's my personal bias too, because that kind of comes in. Like, I'm like, oh, I know I always have this issue. So maybe I'll just make this a little bit longer so it can accommodate maybe people who have the same problems as I do. But also talk to the customers, like find out what the problems that they're having specifically with garments. So that's why sooner or later we're going to run a bunch of our polls and figuring out, like, you know, people who maybe bought something for us in the past, even though we don't have a lot of product out there, which is another challenge. Like we've been running with this one of a kind sort of model for a long time, which is probably going to change very soon because it's not very sustainable. But that's why I'm doing this work and trying to figure out, okay, what did we have? What did we do? How can we expand this so we can make more multiples of something in a standardized way that fits as many people as possible to some degree?
This is a great question. Do Lily designers use a full sleeve or a skirt, or just a bodice and sleeve block? I know that, listen, I don't really like using slopers that much. They kind of annoy the crap out of me. I guess if I was doing like a mermaid skirt, I would definitely use a skirt, but we keep them separate for the most part. At least I do. Like skirt, sleeve, and bodice are separate slopers. I think that's pretty normal for most, even as dress designers. They'll fit together. Like you can fit them together. They're perfect. But What is a sloper? An excellent question. I do
Yes.
I have one? Let me go.
Oh, wait. I think I could pull one out. Hold
Okay,
on.
you try, and if you can't, I think I know where mine is. So a sloper, I'm going to verbally describe it, is a piece of pattern that you can, it's like a really basic pattern that's like just a body shape, and then you can use it to design and create other. I tend to drape actually, which is different. Oh yeah, you've got them. Great, perfect. So they're really basic shapes, right? And they usually have darts because you can turn darts into princess seams when you take pattern making. That's a very simple thing. And also we call it dart manipulation. But they're the base of patterns. Like they're the simplest, most basic of bitch patterns there are out there. And they usually are pretty fitted. They're pretty just like fitted to the body. And of course they've changed over the years too, but that's what a sloper is. And I was just saying that the reason I don't really use slopers that much is because I drape.
I hate draping. I don't like it at all. It does not.
Okay. That's okay. Especially if you're a technical designer, I understand you. I totally understand you. By the way, you would love that software I was using. It was driving me nuts, but you would love it, and you should totally try it. It has a free 30-day subscription. You should try. It's only $45. You should totally use it. You would love it. Maybe we can do a little patterning exchange, and you can like fix my fucking patterns because I suck at like flat patterns sometimes.
Yeah,
and I can't do it digitally. So this is a little designer talk right here. There's two types of designers.
Yeah, either you love draping and hate flat pattern, or you love flat pattern and hate draping. Like I never heard people who like both. Like it just doesn't.
I don't hate flat patterning. I don't like digital patterning, to be honest. Like I don't hate it's because like I don't mind like snipping things and like because that's honestly very similar to draping to me mentally. Like it's totally okay to do that. Totally understand it. But
spread.
Yeah, as long as it's like in person and tactile, I can do it. But like doing it digitally, I'm like, this is the devil's own creation.
Yeah. Actually, I actually never used digital pattern software. I still did everything using spreadsheets, and then I would send it to the factory, and they would handle that part. So actually, I still have to learn digital pattern.
I'll happily say you should do this. I maybe I can share this for 1 sec. I can log in really quick. So I'm right here. But the software is called Pad System. Oh, good, it's here. Can I go into it? There we go. I'm like, it's like share a thing. I'm like, what? Is this it? Sure, whatever. Is it going to open? I've used a software like once to make a pattern, and it's gonna open and think about its life choices. So we'll give it a second. But it's called Pad System. It is a subscription cloud service, which is great, and it's like very inexpensive. So if you're a small designer, this could be for you. This is totally. Oh, it's gotta have my password. Do I know my password? No, I don't know my password. Well, we might be fucked for now. Maybe I can't share it with you. Sorry, guys. I thought I could, but apparently I don't know. That's okay. It's not a big deal. But it's a software. So I suck at it because I've not been able to really use it that much.
Yeah, so. They're pretty complex. I've used some other ones, like when I was still in FIT, like we had to learn how to use computer pattern making, but the teacher I had wasn't really that great. And she also didn't really care whether or not we had some sort of proficiency. She's like, oh, look, I showed y'all how to do it. Okay, that's all I needed to do. And I never got any further than that. So I'm like, well, I still don't really know how this works, but I have a concept of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two types of designers. Like that's so fun. Actually, there's a third type of designer that just draws things. And to the pattern maker, that's another designer. That's actually like the most common designer. Mm-hmm. That's the one who I'm just gonna draw the thing, and if they're good, they have a good technical flat, and it's not that bad. And then they'll give you a spec sheet and the drawing and be like, pattern maker, your problem. It's actually pretty rare to find a designer who's also a pattern maker. So
rare breed.
I would say that there are two types of pattern makers. And then there's the typical designer is actually the one that does the drawing. That's actually much more typical. So we are the weird ones and the outliers because we have technical skills. It's not very common, actually.
Exactly.
I was gonna say what was fun about this is that you included your tolerances here, and not everybody gets to see that either. Tolerances are like what we'll accept as, human error between sizes, or not just size. It's like as you're sewing, there's gonna be human error. It just is. And there's some places where like that's more acceptable than others. I think you just have a standard 1/4 inch here, but like if I'm doing like a collar, like a really cute Peter Pan collar, like that will have like an 1/8 of an inch, tolerance.
Right.
Like that's a very nitpicky, needs to line up, needs to look good part of the thing. And like maybe my sweep on a very full skirt, like Lolita is, I don't even have like an inch tolerance.
Yeah.
Go to town, screw it up. I don't care. An inch is
fine.
nothing when you're like a 60-inch, skirt.
Exactly. Like you won't notice that. Like there's certain things you won't notice when it comes to the tolerance, but like I think with this, I just put like the 1/4 inch. I'm like, I don't even know what this is gonna be.
You're gonna figure it out later.
I'm gonna figure that out later. I don't really care right now. I just need to get these numbers on the paper.
I have to have a tolerance column. I'll come back to it later, but it's an important part of like this is Spec Sheet. Spec Sheet's really important. You take this to the factory in QA, like quality assurance. You go down and you check out. You'll pull a size one, size small, medium, large. You'll grab one of each, check it out just randomly. I always say if you have the time to try and do 10% as a QA. So it's really important things to think about if you're doing production.
Right. And QA stands for quality assurance.
Yeah, sorry. I just throw that out there and assume everyone knows my lingo. Oh yeah, this is also really important if you're doing a marker. Damn. Did I put a marker in here? Oh, I did.
You did, yeah.
Okay. This is so like I said earlier, I have like kind of a weird gap in my sizing. Like I do have a customer who wears a size 2, but there's only like 3 of them compared to like 50 of the other ones. So as you get into patterning and sizing, you'll see in a minute what a marker is. But when you cut all your fabric out, you cut it all out at once. So you have to like ratio how many different of each size you want in that pattern when you cut it out. So if you're just starting out, and like this is I see this question a lot in like the Artist Alley International group, like, oh, how many of what sizes should I bring? If you're just starting out and you don't know who your customer is, just go with 111. Like just start out. Like it'll be simple. Don't confuse yourself. And that'll be really easy. Like since you know you had an even number of everything, it'll be really easy to see what numbers do best. Really easy. At this point, I know, for example, like I said, my size 1 and my size 3 do best. So I usually do a 2-1-2 ratio when I cut my things in production. I don't usually get to cut things in production. I wish I could do that more.
Yeah, I'm not even there yet. So I'm in my living room with a big folding picnic table. That's my situation.
I feel you. I do. I only get to do production like once or twice a year, and I'm always just like, yes, I don't have to sew this bitch. It's so exciting. I think I'm gonna try and do the old school dresses in production.
Ooh, nice.
I'm thinking about it. My fingers are crossed. I'd really like to not have to sew one dress this year. It'd be really nice. But yeah, you'll see what I'm talking about with the ratio in a second here. But yeah, surveying your customers, sales history. Again, if you don't have sales history, you got to start out somewhere. I always say 111 because it's so easy to tell what's doing well and what isn't. But you get stuck with product. Definitely happens. Those baddie cut sews, it's been like 3 or 4 years or something like that. I still have 5 left.
Oh man. Yeah.
You know why though? Because I was dumb and I did medium as my most popular size and I doubled up on mediums and I screwed myself up. Everything else has been sold out forever.
Dang.
I learned a lesson. Mediums are not my average size.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm almost done. There's like 4 left. I'm so excited. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. They sell every Halloween, so it's not a big deal, but it's just funny like how long it's taken. That was a mistake.
Oh man. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta learn the hard way, which is unfortunate. Like for us it's been mostly colors. Like don't make a weird color, just make everything black because that's what's gonna sell. Every time we've done anything that wasn't black, it took forever to go, and it made me sad.
Yeah. Picking out colors and prints. I'm always surprised, like, what is real hot, and then things I'm like, oh, this will totally sell, and it's like, no, it sticks around forever. I'm like, what? Why this and not that? I don't understand, but whatever. It's fine. Markers. We were talking about those. This is just what a marker is. Real simple. And we're going to show you an example in a second. But it's like all of the pattern pieces for all of the sizes. And they're so long. Like I have a hard time visualizing for some people like how big these get.
Massive, like tables that are like the size of like maybe your whole apartment size table.
Oh, it's bigger. Like they can be like, it's like a whole. So like when you go to a factory, there's usually like the cutting room, and it's just like this giant long warehouse area, like a place where you can park a truck. Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah, like a semi.
A place where you can park a whole truck. That's Judy. Well, we've got some photos of some like actual productions in here in a second. But yeah, they're really big.
Mm-hmm.
And I need a plotter to print them, but I don't have one. It makes me sad.
Don't have that either. I would
They're
love one.
I want a plotter. I think about it a lot. I would love to have a plotter.
Yeah. Yeah. They're beautiful, but cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, somebody was like, oh, can you just get that printed at like Kinko's? And I just started laughing. just started laughing. I was like, oh, you think that it's gonna be like a small, like a blueprint or something. No. Mm-hmm. They're so big. It's like a roll of paper, like a whole roll. That's true. Maybe we can just get there are services for all of these things. Like Marker Express is a Bay Area one where you just send them your file and they send you back a roll of paper, like $30 or whatever to print it. But yeah, it's a pain.
Yeah, I'm sure there's places on the East Coast too, like in New York where I am.
I'm sure.
I just haven't discovered them myself, but I'm pretty sure I can find them with some Googling if I need to.
Well, it's also like unless you're doing production, like you don't need one.
Yeah, you don't really need it. Like, so I haven't needed it yet, but if we ever do, then I know they're there. It's there.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like fashion schools might have one. I actually don't think a lot of fashion schools do because like it's a production thing. Like it's in the plotters that most schools have are for things like I said, blueprints and stuff. So they really aren't geared because like the problem with fabric printers are they have to be like 60 inches wide because that's how wide our fabric is. The paper is as big as the fabric is. Mm-hmm. So most of the plotters are much more narrow. They're not meant for fashion design plotting, which is very different. It's a very specific type of plotter. So anyways, you're gonna see an example of all of this stuff in production in a second. I got photos, I got pictures. I'm ready for you, so you understand and see what it all looks like and why you can't do custom sizing if you're doing production. We're gonna get there. But yeah, so this just details of what one is, like just verbally. So if you look at the slideshow later, you'll get it. Anyways, what does industrial garment cutting look like? Here we go. This is what a file for an example. I think this is just a t-shirt. Yeah, this looks like just a
facing.
It's not facing. It's like some sort of shirt. Some sort of blouse.
Yeah.
So this is an example of a pattern with all of its pieces laid out. And as you can see, there's nothing cut on the half on the fold. They don't do that in production. Everything's just cut out flat. And you're gonna see all of it. It's crazy. Don't worry, Mary Kay. I got pictures. Don't worry. There's only visuals. You don't need to verbally describe this. You won't see it. So this is all of the pieces. Like they're all lined up to the grain. All of everything. All of the pieces. So this is what it looks like. This would be a pretty small marker. Actually, this would probably only be like maybe 2 tables lengths. The table lengths are about like 6 foot about. So this is probably like probably about like maybe 12 foot. And I'm like, that's a small marker. It's not that big. Yeah, so this gets printed out and then it's got all the notches for the pattern. It should have the grain line on it, all of that information. It should have the style number, the size, all of that information should be printed on there. Okay. No, I was just saying that the tables are, what does it say? Oh, yes, 3 yards. So yeah, this is pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a really small marker. I just said this is just a shirt. This is like the most efficient manner of cutting, and this fabric's probably pretty wide. Yeah, 58 inches wide. So pretty wide. This is very efficient cutting. This stuff at the bottom, that's your yield. And you always want to pad that a little bit because you're gonna have like flaws in the fabric. But yeah, this is what it's like to do production cutting. It's super efficient. The problem is if you're only doing like 10 units, it doesn't make any damn sense to cut things this way.
Nope.
Because you're already cutting like right here. This is a small, extra small, medium, large, extra large. You're cutting 5. So if you have to like lay the fabric out twice and then put the paper on top and cut it, it's the same amount of labor practically as cutting 5 times, I don't know, 10, 50 of them. It's the same amount of labor, which is why they look at you if you're an indie designer and go, why the fuck would I cut it this way? Why would I cut this for you? That's one of the biggest problems.
Yeah, like minimums are probably the biggest challenge if you're trying to scale your production as a small designer, because a lot of the people who do this sort of work for you are going to be like, that's a joke, you're wasting my time. And that's really the answer you're going to get. And they'll be like, nah, we don't need your business. You're good. Like, figure it out.
It takes so much time to lay this stuff out, like to cut all of this out in this method, if you're not doing like a large number of units.
Right.
Specifically, the cutting is really inefficient. Sewing is like a little bit okay, like they don't care as much, but cutting is really inefficient if you're doing like less than 50 units. They kind of look at you like, why are you wasting my time? So here's somebody cutting. I've got a close-up of the knife in a minute. But as you can see, this is like, what do you think, like 2 or 3 inches deep of just fabric layers?
That's one piece.
That's just like one pattern piece, and it's being cut like inches of fabric deep. And what they'll do is lay a piece of paper between all the different colorways, and if there's like different bolts of fabric, even if they're the same colorway, they'll still put a piece of paper down between those layers because you can have dye-lot issues. So they'll like specifically call out like, this is cut out of a different roll, so make sure you do them all in the same roll. You sew these all together. But you can see how long this room is and how the power source has to come from overhead so that you don't cut through your freaking cord. But yeah, so this is, and it's like sometimes if like there's like a nice simple place to break it up, they'll cut it through. Another thing they have to do with knits, for example, you have to lay the fabric out and let it sit overnight.
Yeah.
While it's been on a bolt, it can get stretched and then it'll like shrink back up. So a lot of times you will see them like cut, and then like they'll actually cut the ends. So instead of just like looping it over, they'll cut each end so that it can just shrink up a little bit. So usually you get yourself at least a day. So like that's a whole wasted day of labor where like they can't cut it. They have to like lay the fabric out and then walk away from it for a day. So yeah, production's really interesting when you start finding about these little weird details.
Yep. There's a lot of them. A lot of things that kind of add up, and it's like, well, this is why this costs what it does, or this is why this is really challenging. And yeah.
Any other thoughts for this slide? Other than this man is very brave because he does not have that glove.
Oh my God. Yeah. Don't hopefully no casualties. Like, oh my God.
So brave. Scary. Okay. So here's a close-up of the knife. It's like a crazy bandsaw situation. That's a really fluffy fabric, whatever that is. But you can see the layers of blue in this. The blue layers are just a piece of paper that I was telling you about between dye lots. That's all that is. So, yeah. A lot of times they'll be wearing face masks because of all the dust that gets like caught up from all of the cutting. So like face masks have been a thing in factories forever.
Oh yeah, it's very dangerous to inhale. Sometimes it's polyester particles. You don't want those in your lungs. It's very like working in these in factory conditions for garment production is extremely dangerous, and sometimes the right precautions are not taken. And that's another issue for another panel. But it is very high risk. There's a lot of dangerous equipment. There's a lot of risk to your health. There's chemicals. There's a lot going on, and you got to be very alert and attentive. You can't just be willy-nilly like that. Those places are serious. Like I've visited a few, like when I was still studying in fashion, and we got like to go on trips and go to actual places where we'll see the markers being laid out. We'll see all the stuff, and they'll explain the whole process. And when you see it, it's just like, dang, like this is just industrial. Like this is
really funny but true fact.
Yeah, no, that's
so
very true. That's very true. I've seen that in my
true. There's a couple like a weird division of labor in a factory by gender. It's not like I don't think it's like other than it's like physically challenging to do, because like the fabric, you have to lift the bolts, you have to put them on the roller, and you have to roll them out. So it's very physically demanding to do the labor of cutting. I see a lot less men sewing. I don't, for whatever reason. But I do see men do pressing as well. So that's like the two jobs I see men in the most, is like the fabric handling and the cutting. Because even the bundles, when they're done, you'll see the stacked bundles in a minute. They had to like pick them up and they put them in this like fabric push cart. So yeah, it's a pretty physically more heavy lifting, literally heavy lifting job. Also, it has like shorter hours, so I think like that's appealing to some guys. Whereas like the ladies sit around and just kind of gabble, they sew all day. Like, they just sit there and just talk while they're sewing, like, or they'll have like the radio on and like, oh, did you hear about blah blah blah? Like,
that's been my experience, like working with some companies that had like a sample room. Yeah, because I spent a lot of time in the sample room. I was always back there, like getting things together. Yeah, the radio's going, and they have like different music playing at the same time, different conversations going on in different languages. It's pretty neat, but yeah,
it's really
interesting. Cool.
Yeah, I would definitely say the division of labor tends to be men do the heavy lifting, literally, in terms of like physically labor stuff, and then women sew. I've seen some guys who sew. It's not like, especially things like maybe like a bar tack machine, anything that like requires a lot of standing. I've seen definitely, and some like other like more industrial, like heavier ones, like flat lock is a little weird, and denim, because it's really heavy and like physically demanding to do that too. So it's really interesting. It's just interesting. What was this question? There was a good one. How will I Google this service locally? Keywords. Garment or apparel cutting services, I think, is mostly like using the words garment or apparel, I think is really key when looking for these things. Cutting and sewing. Usually cutting and sewing is done in the same factory. There are some times where the cutting is done separately. What happens though is that like if there's any problems with the cutting, like, you know, maybe they cut a little bit small, or they forgot to notch it or whatever, the sewing factory will then be like, oh, it's their fault. Okay, we didn't do it. It wasn't our fault. So you get a lot of finger pointing sometimes if they don't work together frequently. Like some factories, like, this is the cutting service I use, and they have a good relationship. But sometimes if you just show up with like cut rolls, they're just like, oh, this is just cut garbage, and that's why we sewed it so bad, blah, blah, blah. Like, it becomes a QC issue.
Yeah, that is a common issue. Yeah, that's a lot of times, like my main job for a long time was fighting with the factories. Like, these were my measurements. And when I was still working, like, you know, for other apparel companies, I should say. Yeah, like it wasn't us, like it was them, it was this, it was that. I'm just like, I don't care. I got to tell my boss something. Just give me an answer.
Yeah, that's when I did production. It was the same thing. Like, oh, this is bad sewn because this. There's always reasons, and it is such just stressful. Like, I feel like accidents and problems happen all the time.
All the time.
And then, you know, like the thing is that every style is usually so damn different. And even if you come back with these answers, like, it doesn't matter because it's not going to affect next season.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to reuse this pattern as like a base. Why am I bothering to tell you this? I don't know. You want a reason, I'll tell you the reason, but like, it's not that helpful. Like,
yeah, just something to tell the buyer is like, yeah, this is why, like, this was like this. But that's on a larger scale. In terms of like indie brands, it's almost like, well, this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, for real. Like, yeah. You eat it when things like this happen.
Like, well, okay, well, we just won't do that next time.
Yeah. I have like, so my favorite example is I did like those aprons, and the ivory colorway, they didn't see the lace that I had set aside for because it was a much smaller unit, and like it was in a bag, and everything else was like on spools. So they just didn't see it. They forgot to look at the swatch list. I gave them a swatch card, okay, and they put the white lace on all of the light colored units. So they're like, it's fine. I was like, this is not the lace, guys. But like, I'm not going to tell them to undo it and fix it because like it would take them so long and it's not worth it. I would rather maintain a good relationship with the factory. So I just ate it. I was just like, it's fine. I'll fix them when I sell them. Like as I sell through them, I just change the lace.
Yeah, you do what you got to do a lot of times. Like if something is just, you could specify everything that you want, like correctly, double check it, triple check it. There still might be a problem. And that's a risk of running a small business, unfortunately.
Yeah. So here's some cut bundles. Like I was talking about bundles earlier. They always put the pattern piece on there. If there was like those layers of paper earlier, they would still be in there too. And they just grab some scrap fabric off the edge, just tie them in bundles. I always love to see the scrap fabric crap that I get. The company I use for my sewing also works for a company called, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that a lot, but because like the factories hate being identified with who they sew. But one of the other companies they use that uses them does their own in-house prints, and like their prints are really bright and bold and really ridiculous, and I love them. So I always get like my bundles tied up with like really bright, crazy stuff. I love it. Fun. Okay, so here's your bundles. Okay. We just talked a little bit about this. But like efficiency is important if you're doing anything in production. And I know you and I talked about this for a second. It's really hard for us to scale as businesses because we do want to try and accommodate as many people as we can. We love to do that. Custom sizing, custom pieces. We love to try and accommodate people, but it's really hard for us to make money doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for us to make money doing that because it takes so much time and so many hours back and forth with a customer to make sure it fits properly. And, the expectation is, why should this cost this much more than my, a standard garment? It's all of that design time. It's all of that back and forth email, question, sample. All of that time is really, really hard and takes a lot out of us. Not just like the time itself, but like mentally thinking about all those processes. It takes a lot out of us to do those.
Mm-hmm.
Love to do it because it's so rewarding, but it's inefficient in terms of my time and making money.
Yep.
It's really hard to make the bottom line work when we're doing custom work.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and that's been a struggle for our brand too, because for a long time, like when we first started like opening up to more orders and more things, and we would take like, people want commissions, and then we'll be like, okay, cool, like, and maybe we'll do something based off something we did in the past with like a modification, maybe has a sleeve modification, maybe a bodice modification or something like that. But even like the smallest change to something that we had already done, like it's easier. It's like, oh, I just want that, like exactly that, and you just make it again. But when there's even the smallest change, and what a sizing change is also extremely challenging. I'm like, okay, I had this base pattern that I made entirely in a different standard size, and then if it's too much, like way different, it's like, okay, I kind of have to remake this pattern again. So, and take into account like all the different like specific things about that person's body that I'm working with, making sure I'm getting the right measurements, because definitely had an incident. This is when we were still primarily doing children's clothing, where the customer had submitted their child's measurements. And when I was making the pattern, I looked at it, I'm like, this seems wrong, but these are the measurements that she gave. And at this point, I was a little bit less experienced with doing custom sizing. So the garment did not turn out, it did not fit her kid. Like it was just like big and small at the same time. Don't really know what happened. And yeah, if people don't know how to measure properly, you don't know what you're going to get. So sometimes I personally feel more comfortable having like an established size that I know generally works. And if we can make small adjustments here and there, it's fine. But it does take a lot of time. And like most of like the commission projects I've done recently, especially, like it's like sometimes it can be a 3-month turnover for something, and that's a quarter of your year spent trying to get a one garment to be right for one person, and it's a lot. It is a lot, and as rewarding as it can be to see the final thing and then your customer loves it because it fits them perfectly, and I love that. Like, it makes me so happy, but like at the same time, it just makes it like, well, this is really not scalable. And even though for me personally, I don't do fashion stuff full time. I've never done this full time. Like, I've always had my fashion job, and then like my industry fashion job, and then my side business. And now I have like a tech job and a fashion business on the side. So it's like, okay, how can I maximize the time I actually have? Because I'm not working on things like 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week, which is usually what it takes to make many things in a short period of time to accommodate many people. So having less of that time, really, I wouldn't personally be able to make patterns for every specific custom size and then figure out all these things and fabrications, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it's just a lot. And like I said, you know, we do our best to try and accommodate within like our sizing. It is really hard to scale, you know, to get to the place where I can even, you know, like I said, the last thing I had done in production was the blushing swan jumper skirt, and they quoted me one price, and like, I've worked with this factory for a while, so like I definitely felt comfortable kind of laughing at them and being like, you guys, like, I made this dress, I made the sample, y'all are crazy. If that's how much you think you could sew this for, you're wrong. I already know. And I was like, I'm gonna contract with you for twice what you just quoted me, and you're gonna come back and tell me it was more than that. But I already told you twice. I was gonna pay twice what you asked for, so that's already, I'm doing you a favor. We're gonna have this conversation. I already know it. And the biggest problem for them was the cutting, actually, because I only cut 10 units, and it has ruffles. It's got, you know, a shearing panel, like, you know, and there's like 3 different fabrics in that garment. So each fabric has to be laid out, then cut by itself with its own markers. So they had to make 3 separate markers, because there was a pocketing, which is also the bodice lining, the skirt lining, and then the main fabric. So they had to make 3 separate things. And I think let me see if I can find the face card, by the way, but maybe I'll show you guys what a face card looks like, because I think that's valuable information. We're coming up here into like a little bit of going over it, but that's okay. Hold on. Where are my spec sheets? I have them someplace. I have so many folders right now.
Oh, I feel that.
Oh God. I just want to know how many pattern pieces that thing had. It was like so much. Oh, garment info. Here we go. Spec Sheets. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Bridget skirt. So, batty top. Classic pinafore. God, I have so many spec sheets. Why? I also have a car driving by my house really loud. Blushing salon. Oh, here's a cut sheet. There's a contract. There's a face card. Okay, face card. Let me share that. 1 second. I'm gonna share my face card. I don't think this has an image, which is, oh, it does. Great. Okay. 1 second. Share screen. Oops. Share a different screen. Chrome tab. Okay. So this is my spec card. So this gives you an idea of how many pieces had to be cut for this one garment. This is one garment. So like, this is why the cutter was just like, what the fuck? Like, this takes so long while you're cutting 10 units, and this is as much labor to cut, like I said, to cut one as it is to cut fucking like 50 of them. So cutting 10 is such a waste of damn time in this method. So yeah, we have problems with scaling. We're like, they were like, it took us like a whole day to cut your stupid garment. You only had 10 units. And it would have been the same labor if I had to cut, 50 units. And they would have gotten the sewing price for all that. So like, it would have made a lot more money for them if I had cut 50 units. So yeah, I get it. I get why we are such a pain in the butt as customers. Like, we as customers, as brands, like it's so hard to scale.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you didn't even talk about like the trims. You have all these different ruffles and pieces and stuff. And then if you have like some of our garments, like for us, like we have like maybe like 3 or 4 different types of lace.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, they're all different. They all need different treatments. They all go in different places.
Yeah.
And they all have different shearing ratios. Like some things are flat laces, some things are gathered laces. And
well,
like,
I only do flat lace. I don't do I never do sheer laces anymore because it's just like the factory just starts looking at you like you are suspicious.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even like doing it, just like doing this like home based sort of thing that we do. It's like, yeah, I gotta do double the amount of lace to put in this little like especially and don't even start on like tiers, and just it's a lot, like lace tiers, like the one of the dresses that we recently did, like oh my god, the name of I think it was the Rose OP. It was like a plus size OP. It had a velvet bodice and it had like 3 rows of tulle lace. There is literally a half a football field's worth in yardage of lace on one dress. That it was like 40 yards of lace for one dress. And if that was at the factory level, they'd be like, where are you going with that? And then I will have to probably fight to get them to sort of accommodate that, or probably have to take out some of the fullness of the skirt, which you kind of don't want to do a lot of times. And it's a challenge.
It's all a challenge. It's all a challenge. Yeah. So just like the main takeaway is that like we try really hard to think about who our customers are. So if you do see like a customer survey, those are really important to fill out so that I know who my customers are. Part of my survey is like, do you not fit my sizing? Is that a problem for you? Like, can you give me your measurements? Like, that is part of the surveys that I send out when I do them. So like letting us know is really, really important. But yeah, like it's all really hard when you're trying to scale as a small designer, and sizing is a challenge, and hopefully we've covered like some of the ways you can think about and work on it. But custom sizing, like I love to do it. It's just really hard. Usually, skirts, they're not that big a deal because you're not dealing with like the shapes of the bodice, especially with like a full Lolita skirt, not that big a deal.
Yeah, skirts are great. So
that's like one of the things I most frequently am like, yes, you can custom size this skirt, go for it. The only problem with that is like how many units I'm able to produce, I don't know, because like, I can produce like X amount of like medium skirts. I know that, but like I start adding custom sizing, and I do get people who are literally twice the size of my medium, and that takes twice as much fabric, and I don't know. And like, how do I price that like into the price of this, because you're going to use up twice as much yardage.
Right. And the width of the fabric also becomes an issue with that too. I think we were talking about like, things that have like border prints, and if the fabric is only like 44 inches and you just cannot get the same shape, and you have to put panels in the skirt to get it to look right, because then it'll look like it's not sheared enough.
Yeah, so like all of that, these are all challenges that like we're thinking about, we're considering, and we're working on. Like, we definitely want to accommodate as many people, because we see you guys. Like I specifically appreciate and see the people who fit my like size 3. You guys are really like one of my main customers, and I try really, really hard to make sure that like I accommodate size 3. Yes, I sample in size 1 because I don't have a size 3 mannequin, and nobody likes to see a flat lay dress. Okay, like nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see that as like, here's my stock photo as a flat lay dress. Yeah. So I have to do my size 1, which is a little smaller than my dress form, but the shearing panel.
Yeah, we had the same challenge in the sense that, we used the padded form, and we just like strategically hid where she was padded. So, and this was the first time we did that because this was the first time putting out plus size garments. Like, we did plus size garments before as custom, and that was like sort of like a learning experiment that we did. I got a few friends who wanted to do specific commissions and plus sizes, and that's how I learned how to do plus sizes. But like for this, like having something that we produce something, just it's ready to go, and showing that on the form definitely was a challenge, because we had to just make sure it looked right. It didn't look lumpy, because we're using literally plastic bags and socks and padding. That's what it is inside the body, because I'm
very rigged. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, like it's a size 8 form I have, and I had to pad her up to be a size 18.
Wow, it's a big size difference.
It's a big size difference. It takes like 30 minutes to get the padding on, and it's a challenge. Again,
it's not like my antivirus popped up. I was like, what's happening?
Oh,
everything's fine. But yeah, guys, there's a lot of challenges. If you have a few questions, we've got like 10 minutes before the next panel starts, so like throw them out in the chat. But like, we're definitely thinking about you guys. We definitely are concerned. Just know that it is hard. And if there is a brand that you're interested in seeing, like, do plus size, like, let us know, like indie brands especially. I know that, like, for example, like Angelic Pretty, they don't care. It's like, they just don't care. They're selling so many of their one size, they don't have to. And like, that's a big thing too. Like, they don't have to. You get it. Money makes everything happen. So they just don't care. But I definitely see my plus size customer, or even like my plus size, but like my larger customer in general. Like, I see you guys. So, you know, if you support us, like, I'm definitely paying attention, and I try to make sure I do size 3 if I have the fabric. Problem is I often don't, and that's a problem. But do y'all get tips for your work, especially custom sizing? So I sometimes price like my custom sizing, like, oh, you can order this skirt custom size, but it's like $10 more or something small. Like, it's not always enough to compensate, but I try and like make sure I compensate for the fabric cost at least. Especially like skirts, and especially like Lolita skirts, you want to size them up and make them look fuller. Like, I'll cut in an extra like half panel width into my fabric a lot of times. So yeah, it's like eating up 1x, like 1.5x what the rest of the skirts are using up. So it's important. So I do a little surcharge, but it's not a ton, but that's okay. Like, I don't feel like there should be like a tax on being larger.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was definitely gonna say that. Like, for us, like, we try to price, like, we don't want to like overprice things. We know, I think a good way to do it is like, you take the price of what everything costs to produce and distribute whatever you have to go up or down cost with something through everything equally, instead of just being like, I'm gonna give a surcharge for this like garment that takes up more fabric, because it feels wrong.
Yeah, I try really hard not to do that, but like, just because of how much extra fabric the skirts sometimes take, I'll charge it like a little bit. But like I said, it's a fabric charge, it's not really the labor charge. I try and work the labor into all of the sizing, but yeah, I don't want there to be a tax on being larger. I don't think that's fair.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't like it. Any other questions, concerns, suggestions for next time we complain about being an indie brand? At least this one was like less stressful than last time.
Right. We're trying.
Brought up some dark moments in fashion design life.
Yeah, it's rough, but you know, I mean, that's why I do it mostly on the side of my day job now. But that's just what it is. Like, yeah, I think I saw somebody commented in the chat, like, you kind of need a day job to support your business, and that kind of could go for any business. But yeah, it's definitely been the reality for me, like, knowing that the math just doesn't math, and you're like, well, I love doing this work, like, it's very rewarding, but it is not going to pay the bills completely. So what do? I do a day job that pays a lot better, that I can support my business and invest in my business, and we can continue to do this work and comfortably, and in the time I have to do it is the time I have to do it. And just it's you have to take a lot more things to account, but if you love to do it, then you love to do it. Like, I'm not going to stop anybody from trying. And so yeah, I'm trying to be less discouraging. If you feel like you even just want to start, like, you could start small, just make like one style of something and make it really, really well, and just keep doing that and keep improving on that. Like, I feel like there was one thing that we did, like, we were very ambitious and just put out like a ton of different variations of different styles, and we're like, this is wonderful, one of a kind, like, everything is unique, and that's great until you're trying to make more quantities of things, And then that doesn't really work anymore because everything is so different that it takes way longer to sort of get something together. So like just how we're thinking of scaling our business now, and even if we don't get to factory level production quite yet, it's just like we're making this one dress, but we're making it in multiple sizes and colors. Or making this one skirt, but it's in multiple sizes and colors, and just doing like a pre-order for or made to order for this specific thing. And you just know like that's what I'm producing and that's what I'm doing. And it's just easier because it's less like things like wheels turning and things that could mess up.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, we got to wrap this up, guys. I thank you so much for joining us and listening to how sizing works and how it doesn't. It doesn't. You know, like I said, I want everyone to take away from this that like sizing is just completely arbitrary. And if a brand supports you and has done the research for you, you should support them. That's the most important thing I can say about this is like, and if a brand doesn't see you when you want them to, be loud about it. And, you know.
Yeah, let us know. I love DMs like, this doesn't work and this is why. Like, oh, good. This is information that I can take.
Absolutely. Like, oh, this fits really weird for me. Good to know. Like, good to know. And sometimes we do have to do custom. And like I said, I try to offer like 1 or 2 custom things a year. I try. But yeah. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I forget what's coming up next because my brain's dead. But I'll see you guys at closing ceremonies. By the way, please go vote for the coordinate contest because I hear it's really, really close.
Oh.
So every vote counts. Just saying. Just saying. Thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Don't forget to do the survey. We're going to head out of here. Bye.
Bye.